College Football Connection podcast with Marty Jenkins and Alvin Reid on 101 ESPN.
Missouri, we had a bit of a legacy-defining performance, or so it seemed, from the senior quarterback, Brady Cook. And in just a couple of days, we have no idea what is going to happen with the Missouri Tigers as that program travels to vaunted Tuscaloosa to meet the Crimson Tide. Welcome in, everybody. Bradford, Bruns, my man Alvin Reid. We are down Marty Jenkins today, but rest assured he will be back next week in studio with the full crew. Alvin, it was a topsy-turvy week yet a week ago as we saw Mizzou rally to the tune of a 21-17 victory over Auburn on homecoming. It was known for all intents and purposes as the Brady Cook game, but now you have questions aplenty as we're about 48 hours out.
Absolutely, and whatever we have written down here, can we give ourselves a caveat as to who does and who doesn't play on Saturday? Because if Brady Cook plays, I'm confident in what I've got picked here. If Brady Cook doesn't play, then I'm not confident.
And his question among that of so many other individuals on this squad, when you think about it, 7 starters. Alvin, at last check, 7 starters listed right now. The preliminary report, as required by the SEC, questionable or doubtful. So this is what we have in terms of the latest news or would-be reports.
And I know it's not NFL guidelines. Questionable usually means to me that you're going to play.
Yeah.
Doubtful usually means that you're not going to play, although that's not the same as the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. Now, at the same time, I mean, Brady Cook's ankle is still sprained. You know, Noel is still hurt. You're going up against Alabama and Tuscaloosa, so they're not going to be 100%, which still works against Missouri. But they'll be a lot better off if they play than if they don't play.
Let's dive into that one.
All
we
right.
will deconstruct SEC first and, of course, move along in the next few minutes on the College Football Connection. Of course, available on the 101 ESPN YouTube channel and 101ESPN.com. Big Ten Nation, Big Ten Country, we are coming, but beginning with MU and Alabama. Now, I said earlier today on BK and Ferrario, Alvin on 101 ESPN, that this doesn't feel like, in many different respects, your father's Alabama squad, even your older brother's Alabama squad. Because in the last couple of weeks, not only has this team succumbed, of course, as we know, to Vanderbilt, we have seen close calls, and we saw that loss against Tennessee just a week ago as well. And to boot, Alabama is there for its homecoming this Saturday afternoon. Kickoff is going to take place Bryant-Denny Stadium at 2:30 p.m. Alabama down to number 15 and trying, Alvin, to avoid 3 losses before the calendar month of November for the first time in a season since 2006. Mizzou riding high with that comeback victory, dropped a couple of spots. I guess that's neither here nor there. But at present, underdogs to the tune of 17.5. The over-under figure in this game, 51.5. And we anticipate more movement along those lines in the days to come. But right now, it would appear as if in that home environment, in a must-win game, quite frankly, for both teams, Alabama a heavy favorite.
Absolutely, and it pushed up from 14.5 to 17.5 based on the injury reports coming out of Missouri because, I mean, Alabama had just lost. So other than they're really upset and want to, take vengeance out on someone, the only thing that would move that number is Missouri's woes. I'll tell you what, I'm still looking at it like 17.5 is too many points.
That's a lot.
That's a lot of points in an SEC game. I really, short of, the dregs of the conference playing like Georgia, back when Georgia and Alabama were the powerhouses that they were a couple years ago. So I like Missouri to cover that 17.5 in this game, especially if Brady Cook plays. I don't think Missouri will go down there and win that football game, but I think they can hang a little bit closer than that.
And that's the key, 17.5 right now. But regardless of where this line, that figure moves in the days to come, give me Missouri to win against the spread. I don't have any of these aspirations of trying to extend the flicker, that flame for the college football playoff hopes for a while longer, because not only are you totally encumbered at the running back position, and we found out last week in the first half when Noel couldn't go initially to the regular extent because of the back. Now you're dealing with a foot issue.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's not a fracture, but he was limited to 6 totes against Auburn. And with all due respect, I know that Marcus Carroll has been pretty solid. He's been stellar at times in relief of Nate Noel. But against an SEC outfit, still the defense, the athleticism, and the speed of the Crimson Tide. I wouldn't be shocked, honestly, if down the stretch in this game, if Noel is unavailable, if Missouri actually opts to go more with Jamal Roberts, who was very solid in the fourth quarter last week. And also, here's the key. You have a quarterback, if Brady Cook is able to go. You know that the mobility is going to be a concern. Roberts is better in pass pro situations and blitz pickups. So you may see some different personnel in that regard, too. It may be immaterial if some of your weapons can't go, though. You look at Alabama. You look at a very motivated Jalen Milroe. Now, picks have been an issue in recent weeks, but he's still just one of 2 guys in the entire FBS system with at least 10 rushing and passing touchdowns. You have Ryan Williams. Are you telling me that Missouri's secondary, which has been a concern for the majority of this campaign, Alvin, is going to have what it takes to keep up with a Ryan Williams? That's where I take a step back and I start to question a little bit, okay, if Missouri doesn't get out to a fast start here, it could be really problematic.
Absolutely, but also at the same time, I think Alabama has got a little pass happy. I thought that because they were in a game with Tennessee, they felt like they had to kind of play in a game like Tennessee.
Good point.
And maybe they just tone it down and say, like, you know what, I think we can block and I think we can tackle our way past Missouri. So the interceptions, the turnovers, let's hold that to 0. Then I think we'll be fine. You know, sometimes you just have to get back to basics and say, what's the object of the game to win it? And maybe that's where Alabama needs to be at this week. I think that would be the point I'd be stressing, that, okay, we got 2 losses. A lot would have to happen for us to get into the playoff. And so, not to say let's forget the playoff, but at the same time, let's just win. Let's just win all the rest of our games, no matter how we have to do it.
I'm not operating under the delusion here that Brady Cook somehow is going to go out and have another hospital game, that he's going to engineer an epic comeback in this setting. Yet, you're absolutely kidding yourself out there if you truly believe that Drew Pine is going to receive any snaps in this game. He better not, unless it's a complete blowout one way or another. Last week, Alvin, 3.7 yards per attempt. And what struck me was the degree to which Kirby Moore clearly had to curtail and cut back that playbook. It was striking.
And I know reps mean a lot, but it was pretty obvious from basically I did not see the entire game because I was at my own. But at the same time, it's just kind of like they went nowhere when he was in the game. And I mean nowhere. And there's very few times in I want to say history, but why is it it's the Brady Cook game? Because Missouri would have lost if he had not come back and played in that game. Mm-hmm. Yep. There was no, he's going to find it at some point here in the fourth quarter or whatever. No, Missouri would have lost because Missouri had nothing going on.
As Cook himself said, whatever the last-ditch effort, whatever was used, and that will remain a mystery.
Yes.
It did the trick.
It did
the job. I want to know, are you messing with the over-under in this contest, which is?
I am not.
You are not.
You still have it at 54.5?
It's 54. Actually, that has come down to 51.5.
Okay,
right now.
all right. Uh-huh. That's because Missouri, I guess they say, wouldn't score as many points. I'm still leaving. I was going to leave that one alone anyway. Mm-hmm. And that really does go back to who's playing.
Exactly.
And I can't go down that lane if I technically just don't know who's going to play and who's not.
Same here, although our man Marty is messing with that over-under. Right. He is going up, but he's staying away from the Tigers against the spread or Alabama outright.
All right.
In that regard.
Because last week I did that with the, let's see, I wanted to go back and say, which one did I left alone? It was,
I left a couple
Michigan,
out there
Illinois.
Too.
I did the under, which was right, but I left that spread alone. So that was one of the smarter things I did last week.
There you go. And speaking of the Fighting Illini, creeping up a little bit by virtue of that, you can't call it a scintillating win last week versus Michigan, but getting the job done in more ways than one. Absolutely shut down the Wolverines' offensive attack. And that wasn't the thing that impressed me the most, because we understand throughout the season, the skill players there, especially at the quarterback position, they've been no great shakes. We know in Ann Arbor this season, Michigan finally fell out of the top 25, probably a few weeks later than it should have.
At least one, yeah.
Exactly. But inspiring confidence going into this matchup, also at 2:30 p.m. on Saturday, against the top team in the entire nation, Oregon taking over that spot, claiming it from Texas, which had gone down, of course, to Georgia. Right now, Illinois is a 21.5-point underdog. And you look across the other side of the field, and you consider the fact that this game, the Ducks are playing at home. They have the high-octane offense, and the over-under in this one is listed right now at 54.5. But if Illinois can somehow, some way, albeit on the road, muster a rushing attack that is even remotely close, remotely comparable to what it did against Michigan, this is a team, Alvin, that entered that tilt, ranked in the 80s, rushing the football. Luke Altmaier has been the calling card, the guy to get things moving for that offense. And against a very stout front four from Michigan, Illinois, for the first time this season, against an opponent of that caliber, that side of the ball, ran the ball and almost ran it at will.
Yes.
Is there any chance of that happening against the teeth of the Oregon defense?
I could see Illinois maybe even like leading at halftime.
Really?
I think they could come in and kind of punch Oregon in the mouth. It's hard to play that game you did last week. You smoked Purdue 35-0. Then you're done with your game because I think they did play at 11 a.m.
Yeah, it was Friday. That was
Friday.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah,
Friday.
it was Friday. So now you're sitting there watching what's happening to Texas. And you know pretty much, you're going to be the number one team in the nation. So you're already in your mind, now you're protecting something. You're not you're not the hunter, you're the hunted.
Sure.
I think it'll take them a quarter to get their feet underneath them and come on back down to earth. I think Illinois could take advantage of that. Thus, I'm going to take my 21.5 points and go with Illinois.
Okay.
I mean, you could, what does that mean? You could still lose by almost 3 touchdowns. But once again, that's a large spread. And I think Illinois can play enough ball control offense to keep Oregon's high-powered offense off of the field. And that will be a key also. This is one, no game has gotten away from Illinois yet. At Penn State, obviously not Michigan at home.
You're right.
That, no game has gotten away from them yet. So why would this one? I think Oregon is a very, very good team. But I just don't see how Illinois all of a sudden gets beat by 4 touchdowns. I'm just not buying that yet.
This team has been underestimated still for the better part of 2024, even as the victories, even as the quality performances, the string of those have rolled in. And yet, Marty and I think we're on the opposite end of the spectrum here, Alvin.
Okay.
Because, Marty weighs in. He actually looks at that number of 21.5 right now, and he says the Ducks go wild, so he's taking Oregon with the points there. And also, it's an intriguing over-under figure. 54.5, I wouldn't be shocked if that were to move here or there, one way or another, couple of points in the next couple of days. I'm with him, though. He's saying under for this game.
I'm saying
whereas,
under, too.
In the past, I have gone with Illinois to try to vault those offensive statistics and the scoring up. I don't think it happens here. And I do agree with you insofar as for stretches of this game, Illinois up front has really demonstrated to me that it has the ability to, at times, quite frankly, blow the opposing defensive line off of the ball. Now, Oregon is a different story. But Illinois, all of a sudden, is playing much more like a lot of the best Brett Bielema squads that we saw in Wisconsin. I do think that you can make that analogy right now. At the same time, Oregon's ground game hasn't quite gotten right, hasn't quite been the same as it was a year ago. To me, this is a spot for Jordan James to really acquit himself well. We will see how tough, how rough Illinois, the interior of that defensive line, is able to hold up, because even though he has over 700 yards on the campaign so far, Oregon has not consistently been able to churn out those yards to wind down the clock when need be. I think you see it actually in that environment, and I'm liking Oregon in both of those respects as well.
All right. Well, like I said, I'm going with the under on that one. I'll tell you, just Oregon, 35-0. Complete domination of Purdue, a Purdue team that rang up a whole lot of points on Illinois.
Common opponent.
Common opponent, right. But that's one reason I'm kind of looking at the under is because Oregon just seems like with Lanning, we're not out here trying to beat anybody 75-10. That's a lot of wasted energy. Guys might end up getting hurt, all that. I think they first down Purdue to death.
Sure.
They just Purdue. They say, it's 3rd and 8. We'll get 14 yards. We'll get 8 yards on the first play from scrimmage. We'll get 5 on the next one. And they just, next thing you know, at the first half, that game was over. But Purdue was not blown out yet.
No.
But you just got a sense. Well, one, you got a sense that I don't think Purdue's going to score. And that played out. That was one thing. It was like, you just kind of like, I don't think I just don't think they're going to figure out a way to score against Oregon. Oregon's just playing defense that well today. So 35-0, they that was an underplay last week in that game. So I think it'll be an underplay this time.
You know, another squad that loves churning out and gains in that 10 to 14-yard department, that would be Navy. The midshipmen. But guess again this year in terms of, there are explosive qualities all of a sudden to that offense. The midshipmen right now, Alvin ranked number 24 in the nation, still undefeated. You can't honestly subdue any of the enthusiasm that is going to await fans of their service academies. What if Navy somehow, some way, and Army, again, they stay on their current respective trajectories? What an unbelievable scenario we could have in December. But that's then. This is now.
Right.
And right now, in the here and now, Notre Dame is going to be matched up with Navy at MetLife Stadium in New Jersey. The Fighting Irish, Marty's beloved Fighting Irish, they've gotten right to a large degree since that week 1 loss. We understand that close call there. 13.5-point favorites in this setting. Now, just last August, this is an entirely different scenario. These two programs, Alvin, they met in Dublin.
Yes.
The final in that game, different quarterback. It was Mr. Hartman. We understand that. Navy didn't even have its stud. It was 42-3. My, how far the midshipmen have traveled, and they've been able to do so largely because we mentioned earlier in the program, College Football Connection, Milroe is one of 2 quarterbacks in the entire nation with at least 10 rushing and passing touchdowns. Who's the other one? Navy's signal caller.
Yeah, okay.
Mr. Horvath. There you go.
I was going to say, it could be him, obviously. I'll tell you what. Let's go back to that first game.
Yeah.
If you're going to play Navy in a football game, I want to play them in August. Before they really got that option down.
True.
Now they've got it under. They got it going on. And first of all, I like Navy's chances of winning this football game.
Outright.
Okay, I really do. So thus that makes it easy for me to take my 13.5 and take Navy. Yeah. And I'm also going to play the under because I think both teams will just be running the ball so often, like quarters are going to fly by. I think Notre Dame, what would subdue Notre Dame as far as actually losing the game was if they panic because they're losing.
Sure.
As opposed to saying, let's play 60 minutes of football, and when that 60 minutes is over, I think we're going to have one more point than Navy has, even though right now the score is 14-3 or something like that. Navy's rolled for 2 touchdowns, and we only got a field goal, and it's looking like we're going to get blown out ourselves. Mm-hmm. Don't let it play out. So I think Navy covers. I think Notre Dame wins, but I'll tell you what, I think Navy could win that game. I really do. I really do.
It's on the table for them.
You only play teams like that once.
It's all
there.
You
can't. It's hard to practice for that. It's impossible to practice for that.
And this team, this season, not only is it averaging 45 points per game, not only is it averaging 450-ish yards total, but the passing element is there to a greater degree. Horvath, I'm not here to say to put him, in the future in the NFL as some sort of project or prospect who's going to be able to mold and transform into a next-level talent. But by the same token, this guy has added an element that has sorely been lacking in most of, let's just say, the recent decade or so there for that program. Now, for Notre Dame, that number has stayed pretty stable, 13.5 for most of the week. Okay, the over/under is at 51.5 right now. Marty, for the record, he is taking that over. He's expecting the points to fly in the favor of the Fighting Irish. Riley Leonard, here we go.
All right.
Here we come.
All right.
So he's picking Notre Dame with points, and he's going over/under.
All right. Now, I don't know, man. That might be his heart.
You
got to think with your head.
I think we're unwittingly here, Alvin. We're ganging up on you because I do believe that Notre Dame, despite I know you have to prepare and somehow try to prepare accordingly for the triple option attack, but Notre Dame to be able to win by 2 touchdowns with what we've seen in recent weeks, the past month or so, the over/under here, I'm going to stay away from that. But like Marty, I am going to take actually Notre Dame with the points because I like the manner in which this program, Freeman's unit, was able to execute in all 3 phases of the game a week ago. I know that it wasn't a blowout over Georgia Tech, but when you're able to score points based on those turnovers, coming off of the turnovers, and then you're turning also the turnovers in the defense into offense, we're seeing that now with Notre Dame. How tough can the defense be? How quickly can it adjust in the first and second quarter? I like the odds of the Fighting Irish here. I really do.
Okay, and Georgia Tech is not running the same offense that they did a few years ago.
Yeah.
But if you had to play a team that was, kind of chop you, block you, try to get outside of you, with simple kind of rudimentary offense. That's Georgia Tech. So that's a good practice game. Not practice game. That came out wrong. But that's a good way to prepare for what Navy does. And so maybe that works in Notre Dame's favor. I just think Navy's got an opportunity right here to just be a stubborn cuss. And I really do think that they're going to give them fits.
In any event, looking forward to it. Should be.
I am too. I am too.
It's the early window, 11 a.m. kickoff. Sit down, start your day off right.
Yep. When Navy beat Charlie Weiss and them at Notre Dame, I really got a kick out of that because I really didn't like Charlie Weiss all that much. But you could tell that it really meant a lot to them.
Yes.
And that's what Notre Dame has got to overcome in that first quarter. That of the two teams that are out there, this is not a slight of Notre Dame, but of the two teams that are out there, which team is really more just emotionally jacked up? It's going to be Notre Dame. Another reason that Notre Dame is going to be like that is because they want to be undefeated when they play Army. And in their minds, they would really like Army to be undefeated when they play them. But you got to fulfill that role to get to that game. And I think in the back of their minds, Navy's also thinking that. We have to beat them. We beat Notre Dame. We stay undefeated. We're playing Army in a game where we are now probably ranked where? 12?
Yes.
Maybe not in the top 10, but we have to be recognized because we did beat Notre Dame, a one-loss team, and we've beaten everybody else on our schedule.
That's all you can do.
That's all you can do.
I don't know about you, but I'm jacked up to come off of the edge. You ready to blitz?
I'm ready.
All right, first game. Let's do it. Texas, number 5 Texas right now, favored by 18.5 over Vanderbilt. The Commodores trying to hold court, hold serve there at home. The over-under in this contest, 52.5. Vandy and Pavia ranked at number 25. The Longhorns, meanwhile, Alvin, losing hard, I would contend, against Georgia. That 30-15 game, I'm not even sure if the game was that close, and it wasn't that close even with Beck still being a turnover machine.
Texas was spent before the game. That week got them. That build-up, that game day, when all the game day crew picked Texas to win the game and the fireworks went off at the tower. I don't know if you saw that.
I did.
They had the fireworks shooting from on top of the tower, same tower that some maniac was shooting people out of back in the 60s, it was just such just an emotional moment. And you could just tell, Texas had left it all in practice, left it all at the pep rally on Friday night, just wasn't ready for that football game to start.
And Quinn Ewers did not look good.
They just didn't look good. And not taking anything away from Georgia, because Georgia played if not the best team in the SEC, one of the best teams in the SEC.
It reminded you.
Right. They reminded you. But Texas just had this deer in headlights kind of thing going on. And then the whole throwing bottles on the field and everybody losing their mind. It was kind of like, boy, there's just a lot of emotion going after nothing. Mm-hmm. Y'all are out here getting beat.
Yeah, rudderless.
Yeah, right. So, why are you – what? So, yeah. So, with that being said, I think the embarrassment of their performance, the embarrassment of their fans, just the whole, what are we? I think they take it out on Vandy, and I think they cover 18.5. I really do.
I'm fascinated to learn what Vandy can do for a home encore as far as that atmosphere goes. An atmosphere that prior to the Alabama game had been maligned by so many as far as, are you worthy of having this SEC environment, right?
Exactly.
Nick Saban, et cetera. Right. Well, we already saw them step up to the plate one time, and ever since, I don't care if you really want to critique the quality of victories thus far, but this team has done nothing but proceed to win game after game, challenge.
You're right, and challenge people. You're right. Right. They've lived up to their end of the bargain. They absolutely have. I think this is just the day that Vandy, and I want to say Vandy, I'm just saying that this will be a time where they run into a team that's just better than them, that really wants to put it on them, that probably will put it on them.
There will not be any sort of a quarterback debate, even if some people in Austin desperately want more Arch Manning action after this one, because I do think maybe Texas doesn't prevail going away, but into the 20s, I could see that happening, winning by 3 touchdowns. Yeah. Marty also likes the Longhorns with the points here. I'm staying away personally from the over-under of 52.5. I think that is tricky for the 3:15 kickoff. Marty, however, likes the over.
I like the over because the over might bail me on the taking Texas in the 18.5 because I think they're going to go way over if Vandy's in the game. Like I said, Vandy could score points. I think Texas will score points. So I think that takes us to the over. And Vandy might cover that 18.5, but I'm going to go with that over so I can at least fade myself on that one. Because I'm pretty sure that if Vandy covers 18.5, I'm really sure they'll go past 52.5.
And nonetheless, as intriguing as that matchup is, as we roll down here, wind it down on the College Football Connection, 101 ESPN YouTube channel and 101ESPN.com. Alvin, for me, I don't know if there is a better game on the ledger this coming weekend, a better game than the one that is going to be happening at Kyle Field. Oh, flashbacks. Just mentioning the venue almost makes me want to duck out of the studio here. But Texas A&M, which has been nails on both sides of the football ever since week one. You could say the same thing, though, about the team that is being hosted by the Aggies. You've got number 8 LSU going into that den. Texas A&M are ranked number 14, of course, and it feels like a very fair figure of A&M being favored by 2.5, less than a field goal right now, with an over-under of 53.5. It's a primetime affair. The lights are going to be shining there, College Station, 6:30. And as I had mentioned, neither team has gone down since week number 1 of the season. I have been more optimistic and higher on LSU, I know, than both of you guys, than the majority of people here at 101 ESPN. But I just simply think that on the defensive side of that football, and yes, obviously, Nussmeier has had a flurry of really good games. He's not going to get the ink. He's not going to get the pub. He's not going to get the Heisman consideration. But this defense that continues to grow week in and week out under Blake Baker, one of the best players defensively in the entire nation before 2024 even commenced was supposed to be Harold Perkins Jr. He goes down. They lose arguably their biggest playmaker on that side of the ball in week number 4. And this defense is strengthening. It's getting stronger. And I think that particular trait bodes well to at least stay competitive into the second half against A&M.
Okay, I'm with you on that. I'm just looking at home field, 12th man, as they say down there, and I think Texas A&M is going to find a way. I really do. Now, I got this LSU bias that I always have to overcome, and quite frankly, I have. I'm going back and looking, LSU is one of the ones that I've actually picked correctly most weeks. I'm going against them this week. I think Texas A&M wins the football game. 2.5 is just a marginal, field goal anyway.
Sure.
But I think Texas A&M wins that football game. I also don't think there's going to be a lot of points, so I'm going to go with the under also on that.
You're like Marty in that capacity. He wants the under 53.5. He is staying away from picking one team or another. I like LSU on the road. I really do, to win straight up, albeit barely. And I think the havoc that can be created, I do think that you can get to Wigman on occasion, whereas A&M, we know that A&M is able to its credit, create and sustain pressure by basically just sending four guys. So
yes.
Opposing, contrasting stylistic tendencies for these two teams, it's going to be a whale of a game one way or another. So LSU, for me, is able to knock off Texas A&M in the last showdown or matchup, pitting the final two teams in that conference with 0 league losses to this point.
Yes,
it's crazy.
And Texas A&M, the Texas A&M team that beat Missouri was better than the team that lost to Notre Dame.
Oh, yeah.
I think the Texas A&M team that will play LSU Saturday is better than the team that beat Missouri. Now, Missouri didn't really show up for that game. So I'm not saying that they're just going to roll LSU from the opening kickoff on.
Yeah.
But I think Texas A&M has continued to improve. And I think they find themselves in the same situation again, favored by 2.5 points, and that they will cover that 2.5 points.
And two programs there whose respective defenses have certainly been able to step up to the forefront even more quickly than I had envisioned.
Yes.
Very
and that's
impressive.
I'm looking at that under because there'll be a lot of drives with no points. And that won't freak Texas A&M out. We'll see how LSU handles that.
We'll see exactly what a certain school that is near and dear to your heart is able to pull off. The first mention here, the first time that we're actually getting back to KU, the boys from Lawrence, because it is a rivalry tilt.
It is.
Let's go to that Big 12. Let's talk about KU at number 16, Kansas State right now. Alvin, the Wildcats favored by 10 Over-unders at 55.5. And if you're KU, I know that you've got 2 triumphs and 2 only on the campaign. But for all intents and purposes, are you going to have a bigger spot the rest of the way? It's a 7 o'clock kickoff. This is, I'm not going to say your championship affair, but it's a huge test. It's a huge opportunity to reclaim some of that pride.
No, absolutely. And this is like what KU runs into in basketball when they play certain teams, Missouri. It's like one game season. Like, hey, let's just mess them up. Yeah. We could do it. KU played their best game of the year by far last week against Houston. Now, I'm not saying Houston is great shakes, but KU played solid on special teams, offense, and defense. There was some marginal play calling once again at one point in the game that I was not happy with, but they played a solid game. They played the game. If they had played that same game earlier in the season, they'd have more wins.
Precisely.
So they're not as bad as the 2-5 record, states, but you are what your record is. K-State is a better football team, unfortunately. And I've said this for the last years until KU gets over that hump. I can't pick KU to get over that hump. Okay. I'm going with K-State. I'm going with the plus 10. I'll give the points. I'll take K-State. I believe it's going to be an over too. I think KU can score some points. So we might be looking at 48-30 or something like that. But I do think K-State handles their business. I wish this one was in Lawrence. It's not. It's in Manhattan.
Sure. And that probably will be the determining factor.
I think that's what it is. And I think K-State is wise enough to know that this Kansas team, if you think there aren't any good, they're the old Kansas. I think they learned that was not true last year. They got out of there with the win, but, KU had a lot of chances to take control of that game. They just never did. I think that's fresh on K-State's mind. I think they know that KU's got pretty good improved football program, pretty good football team. We cannot sleepwalk our way through this game.
The trend continues, though, Alvin, insofar as Marty and your boy, we are rocking with KU
you
to
rocking
win
with the Hawks, baby.
Against the spread.
I hope I'm wrong. I do.
I'm not playing with the over-under. That seems to be also another trend here as we go along on the CFC. But Marty likes the under in that matchup in Manhattan. So we'll say over for Marty, or under rather for that matter, under 55.5. One more game to go. Couple of programs that have not received nearly as much love thus far as they should have from us. But let's take it to Duke land, Alvin. And college basketball is right here around the corner. But no, the Blue Devils have just that one loss so far football-wise. But hey, look at SMU in the low 20s as well, Associated Press rankings. So you've got SMU against Duke in this contest, and it's not exactly being highlighted across all of the land and whatnot, but it's intriguing on paper, and I think at this point in time to see SMU right now, I know that SMU is regarded in a slightly higher weight class, if you will, but I'm thinking SMU heading to Duke's lair, and at last check, the figure was SMU being favored by 11.5. Mm-hmm. Am I missing something
You're
here?
Not missing anything, because I'm taking Duke on the same way.
Right?
I'm like, okay, SMU, you might win, but now that 11.5 is a little high for me.
Way too high.
I think that's disrespectful of Duke and what they've done.
Sure.
And I didn't see that one that way. And of all of our games, that was one that 11.5. Where are they coming up with that one at? Yeah. Now, I think, and there is some talk out there and whatnot, that who's coming over the next 2-3 seasons? People are saying it's SMU. Because they got billionaires lined up down there. And this whole ACC thing and the more, the television exposure.
Great point.
And people are looking like, you don't understand. Yeah. These folks down here at SMU are really, like it used to be illegally, they are, what do you need for us to be the number one program in the day? We ain't talking about winning no games. They're talking about winning the national championship. They're not there yet. They're better. Mm-hmm. Their bowl game, instead of 2 losses, they're on that same kind of trajectory that we were. 5 years ago, SMU was god-awful still. And one step at a time, they've been getting better. But now, all bets are off because they're going to have all that cash down there. But it ain't Saturday. No. And I think Duke handles. I'm leaving the over/under alone because I just don't know how many points will be scored in this game. But I am pretty sure I am solid on Duke covering 11.5. Come on now.
I'm with you there. I am once again eschewing the over/under. Marty, however, likes the under in that particular contest. He also likes Duke to either win straight up or to win against the spread. I'm also rolling with Duke. And to paraphrase or borrow a line from our man who will be back next week here in studio with us, you know that Wallace Wade Stadium is going to be rocking.
Yeah.
Duke, 1 year after seeing Mike Elko go to A&M, you really wondered about, I'll just say it, the long-term aspirations again of this program. And it's almost as if, I don't want to say the program hasn't missed a beat, but at the very least, conceivably right here, right now, you're going to be qualifying for a higher level bowl berth once again, and that's just exciting to see.
Oh, absolutely. You know, like I say, I'm all for it when the basketball school football team actually does something, be it KU, be it Kentucky, be it Duke, North Carolina, who's fallen off like we did. You know, that we got to they got to little heights, and we did too, and then we've fallen back down this year. But I'm always intrigued by that, and I kind of root for those teams because I know that, hey, you know, you're stepchild to the basketball program, all that. So good for Duke. You know, you know, let us win. Let us go to a bowl game.
There you go.
Let's come see us play.
Why not? Why not us, right?
Absolutely.
It is the College Football Connection on 101ESPN.com and the 101 ESPN YouTube channel. We referenced the hoops. That's coming right around the bend as well, Alvin. We've got our college pigskin picks in for the week, but to close the program today,
all right,
I'm going to throw a little curveball at you.
I'm ready.
Because we've got the two massive markets, the biggest in the country. We've got World Series action also starting. Alvin, you're a baseball guy too. Dodgers, Yanks, what are you feeling?
I'm feeling Jack Flaherty is the guy it's going to be by him. He comes out and pitches the gym tonight, and the Dodgers get off on the right foot. I think the Dodgers will win. Okay. Yankees light him up. I think the Yankees will win. So ultimately, I gotta go with the Dodgers.
All right. I love this historic matchup. I love the fact that we are seeing the two Titans probably when the postseason began. You identified all the squads and said, regardless of who is the hottest entering October, who are the two teams that you want to see play and are probably most deserving of that honor, the star power, the star wattage there. And yet so much is going to come down to the pitching matchups. Game one, it is Cole against Flaherty. If Flaherty can set the tone in that game, it completely, to me, Alvin, it changes the tenor and the complexion of the series.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
And also, irrespective of how Freddie Freeman may or may not be feeling at first base, will he get through the entirety of the series? The lengthening of that Dodgers lineup that we have seen in the past couple of weeks, courtesy of sudden postseason hero Kike Hernandez. It's not just Ohtani and Betts, even though those guys are the bell cows. I also like just how well the Los Angeles bullpen has performed, and not even the household names. So if I have to pit the relief corps, as so often happens in October in the CS and the World Series, one team's relief corps against the other, sorry, Luke Weaver. Sorry, Cardinals fans. The Dodgers, to me, also appear stronger than the Yankees in that department.
Absolutely. Now, that's where a good start by the starting pitcher in Game 1 is so important. Because by the time you get to Game 4, Dodgers got to pull that bullpen game out one more time probably in the postseason. And if you've already used a lot of your bullpen pitchers, that throws a wrench in that plan.
Yeah.
And that's a problem. They got to get some decent starting pitching in these first two games.
Alvin Reid, always a pleasure. Give us that handle for us, sir. X-Style.
Hey, Reid, Jayhawks. Hey, the A's and the R are capitalized, so it's the J.
And we will see what those Jayhawks do, how they perform against the Wildcats in Manhattan. Just one of many games, 7 in all, that we previewed on this installment of the College Football Connection. I'm Bradford Bruns at Game of Bruns. Marty Jenkins is going to be back next week as well. Alvin, we will see what happens with some of these big-time powerhouse matchups. Who's in at the moment, who's out, because we're getting closer to those initial rankings coming out, too, for the college football playoff permutations.
There we go. Halloween, time change, and the first, what is it called? That first 12. It doesn't have
it the first 12. I don't believe it as an official designation at this point in time.
That just came up on me like, what are we going to call this thing?
Great question. This is week 9. Next week is week 10, and we'll see how it all shakes out, right? As always, appreciate your viewing, your listening to us. And don't forget also, most weeks during the regular season, heading into bowl season, you can catch us as we are on Saturdays, 101 ESPN from 10 until 10:30 a.m., preceding the first kickoff of each and every weekend. Alvin, we'll see you next week,
All right, man.
All right, appreciate it. Until next time, everybody.
You've been listening to the College Football Connection podcast with Marty Jenkins and Alvin Reid on 101 ESPN Sports Talk for St. Louis.